my name is Michelle, and today I'm going to be going over what the difference is working as a designer in a small startup where you have around 50 people to working at a large company like mine where you can have potentially hundreds of thousands of employees. So at a smaller company, you might be the only designer there, and typically the UX designer will be responsible for everything from UX research to information architecture to visual design to prototyping and more. Potentially you might be responsible for front-end development or even generating marketing assets. At a larger company, you'll tend to be a part of a UX team, and that team can be anywhere from a couple of designers to like 30 UXers. You will have a more specific job title than UX designer. You're probably going to be called like a product designer or an interaction designer or whatever people have come up with these days. And you're going to be working with UX researchers and visual designers and program managers and UX writers and motion designers and UX engineers. Did I get all that? You're going to be working with a lot of people. For stakeholders, they're going to be like a larger group of people as well, because you're going to be constantly trying to align with designers within your org. Another thing is that your boss, they're not the only gatekeeper. Chances are you're going to have like a director or a VP or an SVP. At larger companies, you're going to be responsible for a smaller portion of the overall experience. So for example, if you work in Google search, you're probably not going to be responsible for all search results. You might only be responsible for results related to sports. So when I type in Serena Williams, and it'll show me that little info panel with how she did at the latest tournament. But you will probably have enormous impact because like billions of people potentially could be looking at your stuff, and that's pretty cool. On to constraints. So at a smaller company, typically you won't have the budget to run whatever usability tests you want. That's been like the biggest constraint I've seen. Surveys and user testing, you have to compensate people for all of that, and that takes a lot of money. And one drawback of being the only designer at a small company is you might not be able to ask other designers for their opinions on stuff. So you might kind of spin your wheels a little bit and be like, are there better solutions that I haven't thought of yet? I would say that the constraints at a larger company are really like what aspects of the product or experience you can change. So for example, if I worked at Facebook and I really wanted to change the newsfeed, that thing has already been touched by so many people. You don't get to decide exactly what colors or fonts or styles you can choose for your UI. A lot of that is already decided by your style guidelines. That just ensures that everyone who's designing for this company produces products and experiences that are all kind of consistent. So they have like the same font, the same color. So if you really love hexagon buttons and you want to put them everywhere, yeah, it might not happen. Just saying. At smaller companies, you get larger blocks of time to yourself. And so that means just like more heads down time. Larger companies, you can spend a lot of time context switching, and that's typically because you'll not only own one project, you might own 3 or 5 projects. And you can imagine for every single one of those projects, you'll have weekly syncs and stand-ups and a lot of like communication outreach basically that you need to do. I average 3 to 4 hours of meetings a day. Lastly, timelines. Usually if you want to ship a product, I've seen people ship apps in like 3 months at smaller companies because it's just you and the engineer and that's it. At larger companies, you're going to be working with people with different time zones, busy schedules. Sometimes you can only, find a time for both of you to meet in like 2 weeks. There's a lot of processes you have to go through, right? You have to go through maybe legal, maybe marketing reviews, maybe localization, probably stringent accessibility reviews, which you should do anyway, director reviews, exec reviews. You have to experiment with 1% of your users and then maybe 5% of your users. You have to analyze the data from your experiments. And then you can test it internally with your company. And then if there aren't any complaints there, then you can launch it. Let me know what you guys want to hear about. Thanks guys for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please hit subscribe, and I will see you later.